guys. Welcome to the Glenwood podcast. My name is 𝙂𝙙𝙙𝙬𝙤𝙤. I'm member of staff here at Glenwood High School and an old boy from 1993. Today with our first podcast, I'm sitting here with our headmaster, Mr. Pierre Jacobs. Welcome, Mr. Jacobs. I think to kick it off, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, what made you tick as a laati, and what makes you tick these days, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity to have me on the podcast. I think it's very exciting and something very special for the school that we're launching now. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in the Eastern Cape, born and bred there. Attended schools at traditional boys' schools in the Eastern Cape. Obviously did the things that most boys do in a traditional boys' school, and I think that's where my passion and my love for education was born. I had some incredible mentors, incredible coaches and teachers who really made a positive impact on my life, and I think that's ultimately how I ended up in education, was because of the role models that I had, the examples that were set, and yeah, I think it's an incredible field. It's an awesome field to be involved in, because you get to shape and mold young lives, and you get to have a real impact on people's lives. So I think that's a little bit about my background and why education.
And your sporting side of things, were you a sportsman at school, and are you still a sportsman, or are those days done?
I think those days are done. Obviously had a big love for rugby, played cricket as well, dabbled in a little bit of tennis and those sorts of things, but stuck to the sort of mainstream traditional boys' schools sports. So
when you're not at Glenwood or in the teaching or the sporting zone, what are any hobbies that you partake in or enjoy to downtime?
You're leading me down a path there where, so I enjoy obviously my family. I think family time is very important for me. I have my wife and two sons, and I think it's just important for me to be around. I had a great, my parents were superb in terms of their support. They're always there, they're always supportive, always around. So my wife and I try and do the same for our boys. I enjoy doing woodwork, and then I enjoy the outdoors. Sometimes looking at animals, other times looking for them. That's sort of what I do to relax in my spare time.
And before you took on the Glenwood project, as it is, what was the school you were at last? What was your role at that school?
So I started as an intern at Grey High School in PE. That's where I matriculated. From there, I went to a primary school in George, Holy Cross Primary School, and spent 2 years there before I moved to Graham College in Grahamstown. I spent, I think it was 8 years there, running boarding, coaching rugby, and being involved in various different things. Then I had an opportunity to move to Queenstown, and I taught at Queen's College, and we spent 9 years, my family and I, at Queenstown. As a senior deputy there, so coached first team rugby, headed up boarding, and then there was an opportunity, and a great career opportunity, and an exciting opportunity to come and join Glenwood Boys High.
I think it was a great choice, being a man that enjoys his rugby, coached his rugby, played his rugby, being a big rugby school as Glenwood is. How have you found it on the sporting side of things at Glenwood since you've joined here, and what have you known about Glenwood prior to coming here? We have this legacy of the Green Machine, and rugby has always been our number one sport. What is your take on our sport so far, and what did you kind of think about Glenwood before that?
So obviously I think Glenwood's reputation precedes it. I think it's got a great history and tradition. It's got a good name. It's one of the top boys' schools in the country, and so that's why I found the opportunity very exciting. I was honoured and privileged to to be the successful candidate and be the headmaster here. From a sporting point of view, I think we found ourselves in an exciting space with the appointment of our new director of sport, Mr. Bucks, also an old boy, very passionate and very innovative, out-the-box thinker, creative thinker. And I think what we will see is that in terms of the sport, we're going to start seeing some positive turnaround in that area. So I look forward to seeing what Zane's going to do in that area. In terms of the rugby, every school, traditional boys school, wants to pride itself on its rugby. And I think as with life, with most things in life, you have seasons, there's ebbs and flows.
Sure.
So, it might not necessarily be exactly where we want it, but I think if the foundation is laid correctly, I think there's a possibility of a decent season this year. But I do think it is something that, we've heard the cliched saying that sport has the potential to unify.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's something that has been evident at Glenwood.
And you see us in a rebuilding phase as such, with sport, with everything. As time has changed, each school have to evolve into something, a bigger monster than they always were before. And high schools, especially in the boys' high schools, are very competitive at the moment. Do you see the dynamic of the staff you have now taking the school into the next sort of phase?
I think we have a good blend of staff, so we have some of the more traditionalists, and then we have some newer staff with fresh ideas and different approaches. So the education sphere is ever changing, and I think we would be foolish if we didn't acknowledge that and find ways to be innovative in that sphere. I think in terms of the rebuild, we're definitely in a place where we're putting structures in place to set ourselves up to ensure that we can be leaders in certain areas. And so it's an exciting space. It's a terrifying space at the same time.
Sure.
Because you're venturing out of the norms and the standards and the traditions. But I don't think Glenwood will ever lose its ethos and its traditions. I think that will always be part and parcel of the fabric of the school.
Would you say that, I think quite a unique situation in Glenwood, where a lot of the staff are old boys. Do you think that plays quite a big role in keeping those values of the boys, keeping the ethos of the school, keeping the discipline, and obviously all your tradition?
I think that does play an important part, and we're very fortunate to have old boys on the staff in various positions and various roles. I think that's something that, as you said, it holds us true to our what should I say, it holds us to our true north, to our values that we always aspire to. And we always do, and that's something that Glenwood has been renowned for, and it is something that we still get compliments on today, as the boys' manners, their discipline, their respect. Doesn't matter who we play against or where we are, there's always compliments in terms of that. So people would say those are traditional values, but I think those are values that society dearly needs. I think those are values that could set our boys apart, in terms of having those values instilled in them. And I think that's one of the reasons why parents send their boys here, is exactly for those values that are instilled in the boys.
I think that discipline holds wherever they go. Once they finish school, into whatever field they go, they still come back, and they're still the same disciplined boy that was at school has now come back. You still see them after so many years, which I think it's a good thing to have. I think going forward with the school, as you see it now, you've been here 2 years, just over 2 years, had quite a settling down phase, an interesting phase. Now, where we're going into the future, you want to take the school, because obviously you're still quite young. and I think the traditional headmaster is the old guy with the grey hair sitting in the corner. You don't quite fit that picture.
Just less hair.
Just a little bit less hair, yeah. But you're a young headmaster wanting to evolve into the new era of high school, boys' high school as such. Do you have a particular vision or that you see yourself and the school going into the next era?
I think that this is always a question, and I often get called an idealist for these sorts of views and approaches. But to go back to the morals, the values, the small disciplines, and I mentioned this in a weekly newsletter that I sent out. Simple things like standing, waiting at doors, greeting, doffing your cap, and looking at someone in the eye, firm handshake. Those sorts of things might seem simple. But if we can instill that in these young men, and if we can look at a way to grow and develop character, I think that will set our boys apart going forward for life after school. So in terms of myself, ultimately there's a longer term vision, and there's a longer term plan. But I think as we walk towards that, as we sort of get the right people on board, as we get stakeholders on board, as we engage with various stakeholders, I think we need to always remember that we are in the business of growing fine young men that are going to have a positive impact on society. And I think, as I said, that was one of the reasons why I went into education. And I think that's something that I'm very passionate about. Of recent times we've sort of been labelled a bit of an underdog, which in a way is not a bad title to have, bad label to have, because I think most people want to see the underdog win, and I think we can definitely we are in the rebuild, and I think it's something that within the near future we could see some positive and exciting developments on the horizon.
And with that growth and the positive outlook, I would think that you would like to see old boys like myself and the guys on staff and the guys out there. There's plenty of old boys that are out there that we would love them to get involved in the school in any way possible, and I'm sure you would want to see them come back to their alma mater to just come see the place, and enjoy being here, but then also maybe adding value to take the school to the next level. We seem to be having a lot of success still with our sport. You see the likes of Jordan Hendrickson and Jaden doing really well on the sporting front, and still coming back to the school to give back in the coaching. You're obviously a big fan of old boys and old boys support coming from Eastern Cape.
I think it's crucial, and I think it's going to become more and more crucial as time goes on. I think, as I mentioned, in order for us to move forward, we do need stakeholder involvement, and one of the key stakeholders are the old boys. And often old boys sort of this is not. I think it's important that there's various spheres that old boys can realise they can get back. Whether it's their time, whether it's their expertise, whether it's their support on any level. I think it shouldn't just be put in a box and say, okay, this is the only place that old boys can sort of get involved in or give back in. I think it's important to mention that the Old Boys Foundation has been launched by Graham Wills and Justin Rue in Cape Town, and that's exciting. That there are old boys who realise that there's more than one way just to give back to school. So I think it's also about the network. I think it's important to get old boys back to the school to reminisce. I think it's important to get old boys back for the Old Boys Weekend, for sporting fixtures, for whether it's even award ceremonies, whatever it is, inter-house athletics, galas. I think it's just important for the old boys to come back. Because sometimes when you've moved on after your school career, those become sort of distant memories. Yeah. But if you come back and there's a place to reconnect with the guys that you shared a classroom with, the guys that you shared a dorm room with, change room with, that you were put through your paces on the sports field with, there's a special bond and connection that is developed at schools like Glenwood amongst the boys. And I think that's something that I would love to see growing even stronger.
I think at boys' schools we talk about legacies left behind, and you go through the history of any boys' school and you see top sportsmen, top academics that have come through the same classroom that the boys currently sit in. What legacy would you like to leave behind once you leave and go on to the riches of retirement?
I think, again, it would be sort of an idealistic answer. But I think if we had well-rounded, well-balanced young men who can make a positive impact in society, who are able to engage with people on various levels, you know, who are confident, who are, although they're confident, are humble at the same time, are respectful, are able to embrace the challenges. Something that I have challenged the school with is to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. So to operate outside of your comfort zone. Schools can become very sort of comfortable places, you know, for many people, staff, the boys, and I think we've got to challenge ourselves. So we've got to push ourselves beyond the limits. We've got to try and embrace new things. We've got to try and challenge each other. You know, I think iron sharpens iron, so you know, one man sharpens another. And I think we've got to look at that approach of how we can keep each other sharp, how we can be on the cutting edge of education, not only in Durban but in the province, in the country.
Great. Mr. Jacobs, I'd like to say thanks once again. This is our first podcast, ladies and gents.